Okay, I think everybody's here. Thanks for attending our April 2019 meeting of the National Historic Landmark Dedication, Preparation, Organizing Committee. Hard to believe, but we've been at this for 2 years now since we've submitted our application. We've been planning this event now for 1 year, and here we are finally a month away. So getting down to crunch time. I know there's a million details yet to deal with. Let's just walk through our normal agenda items and see where we are. So, Bill Macone, Director of the Kalamazoo Valley Museum. How are preparations going?
Hey, they're coming along. We're very excited. We just installed an exhibit. It'll be a temporary exhibit on steroids and Upjohn. And so that's in place now, so people can come in and get excited about what we're about to do. So along with the exhibit, we published in our most recent Muson magazine an article. In fact, we've had 2 pieces sort of leading up to this event. So we're very excited. And I know that we've been touching base with our programming people just to figure out all the sort of logistics of getting people in on Friday, May 17th, and of course the planning that we're doing for the evening program on May 16th. So
yeah, so you're all set to receive the plaque from ACS on Friday at that dedication ceremony.
we are. We can't wait.
Perfect. Okay. Dr. John Mansky, our representative from Pfizer. How are things going at Pfizer? One of our biggest supporters. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you for that. And things are going well out at Pfizer. We have a big day planned for this Thursday where we're going to do a steroid medicine presentation for a lot of the staff there to let folks know about the history and all the wonderful things that were developed at that site, but also to talk about how steroid work continues to this very day there. And we're still working on new breakthroughs every day in that arena. So we're all set for that, and it's going to be a great day.
Yeah, I think having these other events going on just make this so much more special than what we were planning originally. So thank you so much.
And you have a plaque coming as well, is that right?
We will eventually have a plaque, yes.
Yeah, good.
Oh, nice.
Okay, Dr. Tom Runge, who's organizing our Friday symposium, among many other things. How's it looking for Friday?
Pretty great. I also want to thank the museum staff. They've been great help helping me plan for the speakers and the breakfast and the lunch and all that stuff. But we've got the catering set up, and I think we're pretty much ready to go on budget.
And speaking of that, Annette Hoppenworth from the museum, who's been our main contact. Everything set facility-wise?
We are set, yes.
Thank you so much. We're looking forward to it. Having the museum be our public sponsor in this whole project was critical for getting the approval, because we do need a public space to dedicate the landmark plaque. So thank you for your involvement from day one.
It was great, especially on Sunday. We had a kickoff to this. Jeremy Winkworth came and talked about unusual products, and it was a great chance to meet a lot of the chemists that I've worked with over the last 32 years with our National Chemistry Week at the museum.
Mr. Don Parfait, you're our MC for Thursday night's dinner and reception. How's things looking for that?
You know, it's going to be a wonderful evening. We did have one individual who had to decline. Kathy Knupp is not going to be able to be with us that evening. But the lineup of speakers and our featured speaker really just top notch.
Yeah, and we did have Dr. Washington, president of KBC, step up to fill that vacancy. So that's a great pickup for us.
That'll be great.
Yeah.
The collaboration with KVCC has been second to none, so that's very important.
Yep.
I'll also say the venue's all set. A couple of us met with the staff at Greenleaf, and we should be enjoying our meal in no time at all.
Good to hear. So that leaves Ed, our project manager, Dr. Ed Thomas here. How are we doing for budget, timeline, activities? Are we on track?
Well, it is amazing. When I got involved in May of last year, Don invited me, and I wasn't sure where this was going or what the background was, and it's just been incredible. The work that's been done. We laid out the program, and we've hit our milestones. Linda's been doing the news releases. I've invited John Hoadley and Sean McCann. Local representative Sean McCann said he can come, and we're still working to see if we can get John here with the other dignitaries that will be here on Friday. I even sold tickets to my daughter-in-law and son. So they'll be coming. So we're looking forward to it. And as I heard, we're over the 150 mark for dinners. So that really brings us in target for the budget. So
Perfect.
we're in good shape.
All right, so I think the one big remaining item that we've been discussing on and off for the last year is, are we going to do a video? We talked about the idea of a video as sort of an introduction to let people know in just a few moments what all has gone into this. What are we celebrating here? What all the activities involved? A video, I don't know. If we were going to do a video, in my mind, one of the main things we would have to do is thank John Hogg for his paper, posthumously, of course, but there's no doubt about it that John Hogg's paper from Steroids in 1902, we used a lot of information that came from this paper. We could not have submitted this without, the way he wrote this was great. It was full of technical details covering 40 years of chemistry at Upjohn, but it had some humor in it too. Ed talking about, he had spoken with Ed Murray, talking about when they were working on the oxidation of progesterone, how he ended up using a broken stirrer, and so it didn't mix very well, and that's what gave them the product they wanted, that if they had stirred at the speed they wanted to, they would have over-oxidized. So this paper has been key. If we were to do a video, we definitely would want to include a thank you to John Hogg. His family is coming. They've already sent me some photos. I love this photo of John actually working on that steroid paper. His son made the comment that he hated computers, so he would sit in this chair, his comfy chair, with a legal pad on his lap and reference material spread in a semicircle on the floor. So if we were to do a video, primary thing up front, I think, would be to thank John Hogg for the contribution of that paper. Then, of course, to go with John Hogg's paper, there's Jeremy Winkworth's website, upjohn.net. We pulled a lot of information off that. If we were to make this video, we'd want to, of course, say thank you to Jeremy for his website.
Well, thank you, Steve.
Jeremy! Thank you for
Yes.
upjohn.net.
Yes. I think upjohn.net has been a pleasure to all of us. I started it about 10 years ago. We were fortunate the Upjohn company kept so much information. And so even back into the 1800s, but as recent as the 50s and the 60s and the 70s, we can look at all these glorious photos and look at the things the Upjohn company did and understand just how much of a part of history we were, all of us.
Definitely.
Are you still adding materials to the website?
I am. People send me materials.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to take photographs of items. I'm happy to scan documents. And there's still a lot of interesting things out there to make people chuckle over.
How many visitors are you getting on a regular basis? Do
I
you measure that?
I don't measure that, but I can tell you I get emails from former Upjohn employees across the world.
Sure.
They look at it
Yeah.
from South America, from Asia, from Europe.
Yeah.
So it's amazing to me how much contact I get, and everybody remembers the Upjohn company so warmly.
Yeah.
That in fact, there are groups of former Upjohn employees in other countries now who get together on a regular basis.
Uh-huh.
Even though the Upjohn company's been gone for 24 years, they
Yeah.
get together on a regular basis.
Yeah. Pfizer's just named a new division, Upjohn.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
That was a surprise to all of us. But,
It was. Yeah.
And actually, they are reaching out to me and to others to
Good.
try to link back to the old Upjohn company
That's great.
and try to pull in some of what the old Upjohn company represented
Yeah.
into the new one.
Do you have a favorite historical document or piece of memorabilia that you like to reference?
Well, there's a lot of interesting stuff on the website, but there's a page on the Upjohn, the public tours they did of the Portage plant.
Oh, yeah.
And if you remember, there were tour guides who are immaculately dressed.
Yes.
And I have a series of photos of these tour guides all posing from
Yeah.
the 1960s
Uh-huh.
through to 1990.
Yeah.
And it makes you smile to see the different styles through that 30 years.
How did you get involved in collecting all this information?
Well, I was part of a group in quality. Part of our job was document control and document storage, and we were cleaning out a document warehouse on Kilgore Road. And the manager of my group just happened to mention to me, hey, we ran across the last 10 boxes of the Upjohn corporate history. And I said, whoa, let's not put them in another warehouse. Why don't you give them to me, and I'll see what I can do with them. And that actually included 2 boxes full of 16mm films. So the website now has grown to about 800 web pages, 15,000 images, and 23 films. Some of the films go back to the 1930s. So it's truly it's fascinating to look through. It's a history of a corporation from the earliest days.
Well, it was definitely invaluable for this project because I think the main reason our submission cruised through ACS as fast as it did with 0 questions, 0 iterations on what went into it, was because we had all of this reference material and photos and videos, everything that you had put up there, readily accessible to the public already. So if we were to make a video to be part of our dedication event, we would definitely want to reach out to you and say thank you for upjohn.net.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah.
Hey, if you guys do it, I'll be in the video.
And thanks to Jeremy's website, we've got all these great old photos from the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. Wouldn't it be great to get somebody in here that was actually there, who did the work, to talk about what it was like to work on some of these historic activities? Like here's this photo, Team Wabcha from the 70s, front and center, Fred Antaj, he was there. He would be great to get Fred in here, but I don't know if he would ever actually come in and be part of a video.
Actually, Steve, I just had to be walking by, heard my name being mentioned, so I might as well just stop in and see.
Fred
What's
Antaj,
going
ladies
on?
and gentlemen.
Excuse me.
Hello, Fred. Hi, Fred.
Hi, everybody.
Fred, great photo. So what was it like being part of Team Wabcha, working on cytosterol and all the discoveries that went along with that?
It was great. I was the analytical chemist. It's provides analytical support for both the chemists, the biochemists, and fermentation people. And I was involved in the isolation of the degradation products of cytosterol, isolating them, identifying them, and I'd like to go back in history because we had to use preparative TLC, column chromatography, isolate them, and then do it. Now today, you have HPLC mass spec, you just inject and get all the information at once, even when in Mars. So things have changed quite a bit since the 70s.
And do you remember most of the people in this photo?
Oh yes. In fact, I'm the one that probably supplied the picture to Jeremy with the names on it.
Nice. Which one is actually Merle here in this one? Is this him crouching down on
Right
the
here.
right? Yeah, very, okay. So 1970s, there was this cytosterol mountain on the
Yes.
property. The company was wanting to do something with it one way or the other. Was there a lot of pressure to actually come up with a use for that?
I wasn't aware of any pressure that was put on anybody other than wanted to keep people off going downhill on skis. Kind of great big mountain, but there's a lot of money there, so if we could find some way to use it and make money for Upjohn, that would be great.
Yeah. So how many patents did you guys file? This was mostly in the 70s now, right, that this work
Yep.
happened?
I brought them here, but I don't have all of them. I think it was 6 or 7 that we had.
Yeah,
And
very good.
various ones, and each individual products that we isolated, we got a
Right.
patent on them as well as use patents for them.
This work was pretty secret at the time, right? You weren't out talking about it very much.
Upjohn policy was that you don't, particularly in manufacturing, you cannot go out there and give a presentation.
Yeah.
That was the rules. And even publications, I had very few publications until afterwards, until
Yeah.
everything was patented.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you can't do it unless it is patented already.
Yeah.
Any great stories you can remember to share? Fires in the lab, explosions.
No, we didn't have anything like that. Like I said, it was fun trying to isolate these compounds, and then we used a moving wire detector. So that was heated. The column effluent went on there, it was oxidized and burnt, and then we would collect fractions as peaks came off. Combine them, those are similar, and that's when we went into preparative TLC or put back on a column again and start doing it. So.
It was really important teamwork for you to isolate and identify the impurities. Then the chemists or biochemists could figure out how to get rid of them and get the purity up to where we need it.
But how you could use them. Because there are an awful lot of side chain degradation products that we isolated and patented, but some of them may not have been as useful to a chemist as to compounds that you want to go down the line.
Yeah.
How long did it take to do an analysis? Because you said today you could just do HPLC.
Like I said, we had to extract, isolate, do TLC, find a solvent system that we could use and put it on a column, and then isolate the individual components. And there was a lot of them in there.
So the idea was to take cytosterol. You found one microorganism that would actually clip off part
Of the 17 side
Yep.
chain over there, and as well as doing some oxidations.
and some
along the way,
oxidations.
yeah.
So then you had an intermediate that just plugged into the mainline process for pretty much all the major products, right?
A lot of them androstenedione, 9-alpha hydroxyandrostenedione.
Yeah, because this was part of what we saw putting together the nomination for the landmark, was that a lot of great chemistry, microbiology going on at the same time, but always with manufacturing in mind, so that these intermediates would be common and could plug into the main manufacturing
That's why the
lines.
chemists we had to let them know what the structure was and see if it's really going to be useful to them. Which one should we be going after in terms of trying to get large amounts?
And that's part of what made the product so cost effective, to where they're even competing today, right, it's on the market. So great work. Well, if you were to be part of this video, is there anything in particular that you'd want to share as far as recognizing the historic work that went on?
It's nice to have been involved, and now it's being recognized, particularly for the Upjohn Company. And that was a great company to work for, and it was a shame that it went through all these transformations, and I worked for all of them. Actually retired from Pfizer. But Upjohn Company was more like a family. And you could work on a project, you could go down Nick Dial or something and talk to somebody, get ideas about how you might want to do something next. And they didn't care. They gave it, and they didn't care who got big, as long as the Upjohn Company was benefited in the process. And so it was great in terms of being able to work together, not have this ego deal, it's my idea, not your idea, but it's the Upjohn Company idea.
And that's probably a big part of why it was so successful.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm thinking that if we were to get Fred to come in for a video, this is kind of what we would do. He'd probably never do it, but this would be the idea.
Wouldn't it be nice?
Right.
So, everybody's in favor of trying to get Fred to do a video?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, he should come in.
Yeah.
All right. And even earlier, we've got these photos going all the way back to the 50s, like this one of the chemistry lab where Anna Mae Searcy at the bench from 1954, Upjohn News. Wouldn't it be spectacular if we could get Anna Mae to come in and be part of a video? I realize that's pretty much impossible. This is from 1954, but it would be a great thing if we could actually do that. Wait, it's Anna Mae Searcy.
Hi. Glad to be here.
Anna Mae, tell us about this photo. Do you remember what was going on? Who else is in it?
Yes, Alan Nathan is checking out a melting point, which is one thing we did for all of to find out if we really got the product. And the other one is Bob Jackson. They're both deceased, as are most of the people that worked on this project. Yeah. I came to Upjohn's in 1948, February, and at that time it was hard to get a job because the soldiers were returning and they were taking the jobs. And at first I was turned down, and then somebody retired or they left and I got to the job.
What training did you have in chemistry?
I have a bachelor's degree in chemistry from William Jewell College in Liberty, Missouri.
Uh-huh.
And this was quite a thing for me to leave and come
So
alone.
you moved
I
from
moved.
Missouri. Oh,
About 750 miles. I
Yeah.
came by train,
uh-huh.
so.
And that was 1948, so that was before
Yeah, we did-
Peterson and Murray's
Oh,
discoveries.
yes, we were working on progesterone, and I had worked at a company in Kansas City so I knew the progesterone picture.
Yeah.
So that's why I was hired.
Uh-huh.
And it was 1950, I think, when we began the synthesis of cortisone.
Yeah, that was when Peterson and Murray made the oxidation discovery, right?
No, that was not then. That was when Philip Hinch and Edward Kendall of Mayo's did the extraction to get a little bit of cortisone, enough to inject into a man that had rheumatoid arthritis, and he practically took his bed and walked out of the hospital. And in doing some research for this, there was a lady that had 3 shots, and she went shopping for 3 hours right after that. And this, you cannot imagine what this did for us, how stimulated it made us on this project. It really injected a lot of energy.
Sure.
We were about 12 people that were working on it at that time, and then it multiplied. By the time we were working in the tower at that time, and that was being redone, and they moved us over to Building 15, the 3rd floor, and at that time I was next to Drury Peterson and Herb Murray, who did the microbiological conversion. And of course, that was very, very exciting.
And you did more than just work at the chemistry bench, right?
Yes. When they would get short-handed in the control lab, I would have to go down and relieve them a little bit there. And then when they were doing the paper chromatography, which was done in these big glass columns, I would go and help them in there. And I was assistant to a PhD, Vern McIntosh, and Peter Meister from Switzerland was in our lab at that time. And we were all working, and by that time, I don't know, I've added up, and I think it was about 17 of us working in that area. And of course, the pilot lab was down below us, and then they began throwing other departments in, like bacteriology, antibiotics, endocrinology. I can't remember all of them, too many of them. I think it got up at least 100. And I'm talking about just on that synthesis, not the people that were working in, fine chemicals and some of those things when they really umped it up in amounts.
Did you move out to Portage?
No, I never worked at Portage
You
at
never
all.
did?
No, no. Just in those 2 buildings.
Yeah.
It's very interesting what you said, that you had efficacy in humans at the very beginning of your project, because many of the projects I've worked on, you don't see the efficacy until you get into phase 2 or phase 3, and you're just kind of hoping that it's going to work at that time. So you really, like you said, you really must have been excited when you saw
Well, it
that.
was, and it was like Fred said, the Upjohn Company at that time was like a big family, and these people all in this group, we were just I almost felt like they were my relatives away from home.
And you touched on it a little bit, but you had the feeling there were a lot of discoveries going on. There was some excitement.
We were with 5 or 6, Merck, Eli Lilly, G.D. Searle, Park Davis. I think there's another one I just can't recall.
Yeah.
And Merck had already done some work on this, but somehow we managed to come ahead of them.
Well, I think through hard work, right?
Well, it was a lot of hard work, yes. You did the same experiment over and over and over,
Yeah.
and then you know, make it a little bit bigger the next time, so.
So if we were to somehow be able to pull off a video like this, is there something you would want to say to everyone about the significance of this historic landmark, what it was like to be part of it?
Well, it was extremely exciting, and sometimes I almost feel like that Upjohn has not had anything quite as exciting as Cortisone was, but then I've been away from it, so maybe there were other things that I didn't know about. And I did know John Hogg. I first knew Harold Koloff, then John Hogg, Dave Weisblatt. Bob Levin is the one that hired me in the small group. And the other thing that was interesting at that time, you will probably cut this, but those guys were all building Frank Lloyd Wright houses. Now, I had not heard of Frank Lloyd Wright at that time, being a single gal. And at coffee, they'd go and talk about their problems with pouring their blocks and coloring their blocks and whatever they were doing. But like I said, it was just like, you were just part of it.
And some of those homes are still with us.
They're still still with us, I believe.
With leaky flat roofs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, there were a lot of problems with them.
Well, because of the secrecy and you had to patent things, what did you tell your neighbors or your friends that you were working on? Or what did you tell them you did as a job?
I'm not sure that it was a secret. I don't remember that. But we did do patents. I have two, my name is on 2 patents. But Vern wrote those all up. And he set up my experiments. And Vern liked to come in a little bit later than 8 o'clock, and I'd get the project started, but then he'd come in and finish it in the evening. So we worked as a pair.
Yeah.
And we were lifelong friends.
Oh, that's nice.
So a photo from 1954, what are we, 65 years later? Do you remember what was in that cylinder you're holding?
Are you kidding? I'm glad. I'm lucky to remember how much I've told you.
Okay, well, I mean, this is exactly what we would want to do with a video if we could pull this together, but I don't know how we would possibly do it.
Wonderful to have met you.
Yes, I'm so glad you came.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to ask something. As a woman, and you now we talk about STEM and girls.
Oh,
Think about back then.
Hey, get this on camera.
Yeah.
Yeah, you are now part of the show. Get it on camera.
If we were to do a video, I would ask.
We just expanded the fourth wall here.
that is an extremely interesting question, because as I remember, the first woman scientist that was hired at Upjohn's was in 1942, and it was Dr. Alma Whiffen on the penicillin. And she worked at Rose Street, and then one of the gals in my group was Mildred Wessner, and she came in 1944. So really, for Upjohn women scientists, in later years, I have figured that I really was on the cutting edge.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, the first 10 years.
Yeah.
So,
Do you remember how you found out about the opportunity in Kalamazoo?
yes, 2 fellows worked at George A. Breon with me, and one of them was Bruce Moffett and Jim Stafford, and they both came to Upjohn's, and they recommended me, and so that is how I got here.
Yeah.
Anna Marie, do you remember a woman named Hazel Marion Lee?
Yes, yes, she was in the group.
She showed up in several of the pictures
Yes,
that
she
we
did.
had.
That's
Okay.
right.
She
But
was
I'm-
in Portage, though, I think. maybe.
What?
In Portage, or
No, we were all
we
downtown.
were all downtown?
We were all downtown. And the pilot lab was in the first floor, I guess, of Building 15. And they were the ones that took it from the lab level to the bigger thing. And then it eventually was built up and did go out to Portage to be done that way.
What year did you retire?
I didn't exactly retire. Well, I quit because I was pregnant, and
Yeah.
at that time you had to
Yeah.
quit,
Yeah,
but to raise a family.
yeah,
And then I never
didn't
went.
go back.
I never did go back.
Yeah.
No, I did hobbies after that.
yeah. Do you remember the last project you worked on?
No, but we
Uh-huh.
weren't. We were just doing follow-up work, I think.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't know. I do
Yeah.
not remember.
I think it's interesting as we're telling little girls now about STEM and how to get more into chemistry. What would you tell a young girl now about the importance of being involved in STEM careers?
Well, they have so many more opportunities now. I mean, we got girls that are young women that are engineers and all kinds of things. Well, they even go out into space. So, yeah, it's a completely different world.
How did you know you were interested in chemistry?
Well, I don't know.
Yeah,
I've never figured that one out.
yeah. Did you like math?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm pretty good at math and
Yeah.
science.
yeah.
And
Did people encourage you or discourage you because you're a woman?
no, I think I was encouraged. I had an odd education because during the war, we had a class of about 40, and secular we had 2 people, and that girl went to another school, and I was the only person. And my professor had been in the war, and he came back for my junior and senior years, and I had a job at Corn Products, and he would teach me. That was a 7-day-a-week thing, but I only worked 5 days, and he would teach me on the other days. So I really private tutored.
That's special. Yeah, yeah.
I always do better with competition, though.
We were talking earlier about the work at Mayo Clinic in humans and how important that was to kickstart the research in Upjohn on steroids. And it's really gone on to benefit much more than humans. There's a whole world of animals out there that have benefited from steroid therapy. And, we kind of pulled that into our nomination package when we wrote it. But it'd be wonderful to have somebody here who was involved in that work, like, maybe Jim Lauderdale for MGA.
What an opportunity to join this group of true leaders for the Upjohn Company.
Jim Lauderdale, ladies and gentlemen.
My history with MGA started in 1967, and as Anna Mae shared that the corticosteroids and the progestogens were really under synthesis, moving away from natural product extractions in the 50s and 60s. And she also talked about collaboration. In those days, there was a human reproduction group and an animal reproduction group, and both groups were looking for something that would help manage reproduction. And so out of the human side, medroxyprogesterone acetate came, 2 steps different from progesterone, which became Depo-Provera, I believe still the largest contraceptive in the world. And for the animal side, we discovered that melangestrol acetate, or MGA, that had 4 steps different than progesterone, would confer oral activity in animals as large as cattle. Wow. And as a result of that screening effort, there was a discovery that females consuming MGA would increase their weight gain, their muscle capacity better. They would use less feed, and they would not express estrus, which disrupts the group of animals when they're in the feedlot. Syntex, Elanco, and Squibb were also seeking, but MGA was the only one at 1/4 to 1/2 milligram that was economically viable for use in animal agriculture. So 51 years this past February. It continues to generate somewhere in the upper 20s or low $30 million. Modern projects might say this is really a good product, but its GP was somewhere around 89 to 90%. I was speaking to someone a little earlier, and fermentation guys in the 70s and 80s figured out how to decrease the residues from that manufacture, which protected the environment, but it's always been a challenge. It was genericized by Ivy Gene by an ex-Upjohnite in about 2004. It's no longer on the market because even the Chinese can't be competitive in the manufacturing of that compound. One quick step further, glucocorticoids and the corticosteroids that came from the human side are still extensively used in both small animal medicine and in large animal medicine today by what is now Zoetis. So the Upjohn Company contributions to the animal health side were unbelievably positive. And MGA really allowed the animal health business to move from absolutely base to begin the climb to what it is today.
That's what's been so great about working on this project is we're covering a 40-year span, and the depth and breadth of all the discoveries, all the products across the entire pharmaceutical market. It's just amazing, definitely worth of historical landmark dedication. So yeah, I think if we make this video, getting Jim in to talk about the animal health piece, something we should definitely do.
Thank you, Jim.
You're welcome. Thank you for allowing me in.
That was great.
Jim, what was your role? What did you touch in the process?
When I came to Upjohn, Bob Zimmerman and Monty Smith had already done the screening and discovered MGA for cattle. And we had a large beef herd at the Upjohn farm, and I took responsibility for that, and that was a safety study to assure that there would be no untoward effects with long-term feeding of MGA.
Right.
Because of the Delaney Amendment that would allow no carcinogens in our food supply, and the Center for Veterinary Medicine classifying all steroids as suspect carcinogens, then we addressed what is it that we can do with MGA. Because as you well know, as soon as you have something that's doesn't have zero tolerance, then it's assay sensitivity.
Right.
And Bill Neff's group had a 25 part per million assay sensitivity, and we did 5 lifespan mice studies. Mice are supposed to die at 24 months. We had mice living till 30. We had dog studies, beagle dogs as our surrogate, rabbits, so my responsibility was working with Lloyd Goines and Dick Johnson in pathology toxicology to design all those studies, working with Bill Neff on assay development and doing the screening assays in the real feedlot area. And then as project team leader, I was responsible for communicating with Fine Chem to keep the price down. And then I was requested, demanded, appreciated going to the World Health Organization, Joint Expert Committee on Food Additives, and defending MGA to the place where we now have an ADI and an MRL. The Germans looked me in the face at the second JECFA meeting and said, "You'll never be successful, we'll never allow you to get an ADI or an MRL. We have that." Canadians finally gave 0-day withdrawal. So it's a reaffirmation of the reality of the willingness of people to work together in project teams to accomplish something that folks would say you can't do. And it was across divisions.
Thanks.
My apology for a long answer.
No, it was a good answer.
Great story.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So if we were to do a video, I think the things we just discussed are what we would try to do. We would thank John Hogg. We would thank Jeremy for upjohn.net. If we could get some people in here like Fred Antage, Anna May, Jim Lauderdale to talk from their firsthand experience that went into it, that would really help us express the feeling and all the activities that went into this and the accomplishments, and really bring home the point that this is a historical occasion, historical work worthy of a landmark in the ACS program. I don't know if we'll be able to do a video. Maybe we can talk to Public Media Network and see if they could help us out. But other than that, any other agenda items for today's meeting? If not, we're counting down 1 month to go. We'll have one more meeting before the event.
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
Great.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work.
Thanks.
That's a wrap.